How Earth's Deathworld Class 13. Status shattered the Galactic Order Part 1. The stars looked different through the new telescope. Daniel Hayes stood on the observation deck of the space station, watching Earth spin slowly below. He had been waiting for this moment his entire life. Humanity had finally built a ship that could travel faster than light. After centuries of dreaming about the stars, they were ready to meet their neighbors. The ship was called the Wanderer. It was not beautiful or elegant. Engineers had built it for function, not appearance. Gray metal panels covered its hull. 3 massive engines stuck out from the back. Inside, the corridors were narrow and smelled like oil and recycled air. But it worked. The test flights had proven that. Now they were ready for the real journey. Daniel commanded a crew of 40 people. His second in command was Karen Mills, a sharp woman who had flown jets before joining the space program. They had trained together for 3 years. The rest of the crew included scientists, engineers, doctors, and 2 Marines just in case. Nobody knew what waited out there among the stars. The launch happened on a Tuesday morning. Earth's leaders gave speeches. News cameras recorded everything. Children in schools watched on screens. Then the Wanderer separated from the station, fired its engines, and disappeared into a flash of twisted light. For 3 months, they explored empty space. They found dead planets and clouds of gas. They measured radiation and mapped star systems. It was interesting work, but lonely. Then their sensors picked up something new, an energy signature that did not match anything natural. Another ship dropped out of hyperspace right in front of them. Daniel felt his heart race as alarms blared across the bridge. The alien ship was huge, at least 3 times the size of the Wanderer. Its surface was smooth and dark like polished stone. Lights blinked along its hull in patterns Daniel could not interpret. Karen moved quickly to her station. Her fingers flew across the controls as she ran scans. "They are not targeting us," she said. "Not yet, anyway." Daniel took a breath and straightened his uniform. This was the moment humanity had prepared for. "Open a communication channel," he ordered. The main screen flickered. An alien face appeared. Daniel had seen insects before, but nothing like this. The creature had a triangular head covered in dark chitin. Its eyes were multifaceted, gleaming like cut crystal. Mandibles moved as it spoke, clicking and clacking in a rhythm that reminded Daniel of beetles in summer grass. The ship's computer tried to translate. Text appeared on a secondary screen, updating in real time as the software learned. "Human vessel, you are ordered to power down your weapons and engines. You will follow us to Council Station Alpha 7. Your planet has been detected. Protocol demands immediate classification." Daniel looked at Karen. She shrugged slightly, her expression calm despite the tension. They had always known this might happen. Humanity had prepared for peaceful contact, hostile contact, and everything in between. "We comply," Daniel said clearly. "We come in peace and wish to establish diplomatic relations." The alien's mandibles clattered. The computer struggled with the translation for a moment, then updated. "Peace is a luxury afforded to species from comfortable worlds. We shall determine what category of hardship bred your kind." The Wanderer followed the alien ship for 3 days. They traveled through hyperspace, covering distances that would have taken years at normal speeds. Daniel spent the time reviewing everything they knew about Earth's history, culture, and biology. If aliens were going to judge humanity, he wanted to present the best case possible. Council Station Alpha 7 appeared without warning as they dropped out of hyperspace. Daniel had to grab his chair to keep from stumbling. The station was enormous, larger than Earth's moon. It looked like someone had taken a city and wrapped it around a sphere. Thousands of ships moved around it like insects around a hive. Lights glowed from countless windows. Energy shields shimmered in the starlight. "Sir," Karen said quietly, "I count over 500 vessels. Maybe more. Different designs, different sizes. We are seeing dozens of species here." Daniel nodded. His mouth felt dry. Humanity had hoped for first contact, but they had imagined meeting 1 or 2 alien species. This was an entire civilization, a community of worlds that had existed long before humans had climbed down from trees. They docked at a smaller port on the station's equator. The alien escort, who had identified itself as Security Officer Thax, guided them through corridors that seemed designed for bodies of all shapes and sizes. Some hallways were wide and tall. Others were narrow tunnels. The gravity changed from section to section. They passed hundreds of aliens. Daniel saw beings that walked on 6 legs, creatures that floated in bubbles of colored gas. Something that looked like a living pile of rock shuffled past, and Karen had to pull a young scientist named Peter Grant out of its path. The classification committee met in a large chamber shaped like half a sphere. 7 aliens sat on a raised platform, looking down at where Daniel, Karen, and Peter stood. The lead official was unlike anything Daniel had expected. It resembled a jellyfish but made of light instead of flesh. Its body pulsed with colors that shifted from blue to purple to green. "Humans of Earth," the being said, and this time the translation was perfect. "I am Coordinator Velshara. We have studied your world using long-range sensors. We have analyzed your sun, your atmosphere, your oceans, and your continents. We have observed your weather patterns, your geological activity, and your biological diversity." Velshara paused. The colors pulsing through its body shifted to dark red. "Your planet is beyond our normal classification scale. We must designate it as a Class 13 Deathworld. No known civilization has ever evolved on a world rated above Class 11. This should not be possible." Daniel frowned. He looked at Karen and Peter, both equally confused. "I apologize, Coordinator, but I do not understand. Earth is quite pleasant. We have dangerous regions, certainly, but most of the planet is perfectly habitable." A reptilian alien sitting to Velshara's left leaned forward. Its scales were dark green and its eyes were yellow with vertical pupils. "Your oxygen concentration is 21%. That is a toxic fire hazard. Most civilized worlds maintain oxygen levels between 8 and 12%. Your atmosphere is a bomb waiting to explode." Another committee member, something that looked like a praying mantis made of blue metal, spoke next. "Your gravity is 1.0 standard. That is crushing. Most species evolve on worlds between 0.6 and 0.8 standard. Your children grow up carrying weights that would cripple ours." A third alien, floating in what appeared to be a tank of orange liquid, added its voice. "Your weather systems are violent beyond measure. You have storms that generate wind speeds exceeding 300 kilometers per hour. You have temperature variations of 80 degrees or more between seasons. Your precipitation can freeze, flood, or evaporate with lethal consequences." Velshara's colors pulsed again. "And your biology is nightmare fuel for any civilized species. Your oceans contain creatures with toxins that can kill in minutes. Your land predators can tear through metal. Your insects carry diseases that have killed billions of your own kind. Your microscopic life is aggressive and adaptable. You even have plants that can cause pain on contact." Peter Grant, the xenobiologist, spoke up. "But we have adapted to all of this. Every species on Earth has evolved to survive these conditions. Humans are no different." "That," Velshara said softly, "is precisely what terrifies us." The chamber fell silent. Daniel looked around at the 7 committee members. He saw something in their postures, in the way they held themselves, that he had not expected to see. Fear. These advanced aliens, with their massive station and hundreds of ships, were afraid of humanity. "We are not monsters," Daniel said quietly. "We are explorers, scientists. We come seeking friendship and knowledge." "You come from a world that should have killed you 1,000,000 times over," the reptilian alien replied. "Yet here you stand. You survived the impossible. That makes you either incredibly lucky or incredibly dangerous. The Council needs to determine which." News traveled fast across the Galactic Council. Within days, every species knew about Earth and its impossible classification. The humans who had arrived from the Class 13 Deathworld became celebrities, though not the kind anyone wanted to be. Aliens stared at them in corridors. Conversations stopped when they entered rooms. Security officers followed them everywhere, keeping a respectful but obvious distance. Ambassador Lisa Chen arrived at the station 2 months after the Wanderers' first contact. She was Earth's choice for diplomatic relations, a woman who had spent 20 years negotiating treaties between nations. She spoke 5 languages, held degrees in law and political science, and had a reputation for staying calm under pressure. But nothing in her training had prepared her for this. Her quarters on the station were in a section designed for carbon-based life forms. The rooms were comfortable enough, with furniture that adjusted to human proportions and air that smelled clean if a bit sterile. But Lisa felt isolated. When she walked to meetings, other diplomats moved to the opposite side of corridors. When she tried to introduce herself at diplomatic functions, aliens found excuses to leave. A small creature that resembled a furry starfish actually fainted when she reached out to shake its appendage. Lisa reported back to Earth once a week using quantum communication equipment. President Helen Foster always listened carefully to these reports, her face serious on the video screen. "How bad is it?" Helen asked during the third week. "They treat us like we might explode at any moment," Lisa replied. She sat at her desk looking tired. "I understand their fear. We come from a world they cannot comprehend. But fear will not build bridges. We need to change their perspective. What do you suggest?" Lisa smiled slightly. "We show them what humans can really do. Not to intimidate them, but to demonstrate that we are not fragile. They keep talking about how deadly Earth is, how impossible our evolution was. Let us prove that we belong here despite that, or maybe because of it." The opportunity came faster than expected. The Council announced a series of evaluation tests for humanity. They wanted to understand human capabilities before granting full membership status. Council officials tried to frame it as standard procedure, but everyone knew the truth. They were testing whether humans were safe to have around. The first test involved survival skills. The Council chose a Class 9 planet called Vrexus, home to the Vrex warrior species. The Vrex were famous across the galaxy as skilled fighters and hunters. Their world was considered extremely dangerous by galactic standards, with aggressive predators and harsh environmental conditions. The test was simple. A human volunteer would be dropped into the Vrex wilderness with basic supplies and a distress beacon. The goal was to survive for 7 days. Lieutenant Jake Morrison volunteered immediately. He was a former park ranger from Colorado who had joined the space program because he wanted to see alien forests. Jake was lean and muscular with sun-weathered skin and calm eyes. He packed his supplies carefully, listened to the briefing about Vrex's wildlife, and smiled. The Council observers watched from orbit as Jake was dropped into a forest region of Vrexus. The trees were thick and tall with purple leaves that blocked most sunlight. The temperature was around 35 degrees Celsius. Humidity was high. Sensors showed multiple large predators in the area. Jake looked around after the transport shuttle left. He found a good spot near a stream, checked the water quality, and set up a basic shelter. Then he gathered firewood and started exploring. The planet reminded him of rainforests back on Earth, except the animals were larger and more colorful. He spotted something that looked like a cross between a bear and a lizard. It watched him from a distance but did not approach. Jake kept his knife ready just in case, but the creature eventually wandered away. On the second day, Jake caught fish from the stream using an improvised spear. The fish were safe to eat according to his scanner. He cooked them over his fire and found them tasty. On the third day, he discovered edible fruit growing on low bushes. The purple berries were tart and refreshing. By the fourth day, Jake was bored. The planet was beautiful but not particularly challenging. The predators were easy to spot because they did not seem to understand stealth. The weather was stable. Food and water were abundant. He activated his communication device and called the observers. "This is Morrison. I am requesting early extraction." "The test is complete." The Council observers were confused. "Lieutenant Morrison, you have 3 more days remaining in the evaluation period. Are you in distress?" "No, I am fine." "Better than fine, actually. But there is no point in staying longer. This world is pleasant. The wildlife is interesting. But it is easier than camping in the Rockies back home. No mosquitoes, no bears that can climb trees, no sudden temperature drops at night. Honestly, I could stay here for months without any problems." The shuttle picked him up an hour later. When Jake walked into the observation room, the Council officials stared at him in silence. A Vrex warrior standing over 2 meters tall with scales like armor stepped forward. "You mock our world," the Vrex said, his voice deep and growling. Jake shook his head, no disrespect intended. "Your planet is nice, beautiful even, but you asked me to survive there, and I am telling you honestly that it was not difficult. Earth has regions that are much harder to survive in." The Vrex warrior's eyes narrowed. "Then perhaps we need a different test, combat, you against me. No weapons, just natural ability. We will see how formidable humans truly are." Jake looked at Ambassador Chen, who had been watching from the back of the room. She nodded slightly. Jake turned back to the Vrex. "Okay, when do we start?" The combat ring was set up in a large gymnasium. Council officials gathered to watch, along with diplomats from dozens of species. The Vrex warrior entered first, performing a ritual that involved roaring and striking his chest. He was impressive, his scales gleaming under the lights, his muscles clearly visible beneath his armored hide. Jake entered wearing simple clothes and bare feet. He was half the Vrex's size and looked completely ordinary by comparison. Betting among the alien observers heavily favored the Vrex. The match started with a buzzer. The Vrex charged forward with surprising speed. But Jake was faster. He sidestepped at the last second, and the warrior's claws missed by centimeters. Before the Vrex could recover, Jake moved in low. He grabbed the warrior's arm, twisted his body, and used a basic judo throw. The Vrex hit the mat hard, the impact shaking the floor. The entire fight lasted 18 seconds. Jake helped the stunned warrior to his feet afterward. "You are strong," Jake said respectfully, "but your joints are not designed for that kind of leverage. No offense." The Vrex warrior stared at him, then made a sound that might have been laughter. "None taken, human. You fight well. Your world has made you dangerous." Ambassador Chen smiled as she watched. This was exactly what humanity needed. Not to dominate or intimidate, but to demonstrate competence. To show that humans belonged in the galactic community, not despite their origins, but because of them. The medical examination that followed shocked the council doctors even more than the combat demonstration. They compared human biology to Vrex biology. The Vrex had denser bones, tougher skin, and better temperature regulation. But humans had faster reflexes, more flexible joints, and greater endurance. The doctors concluded that evolution on Earth had created a species optimized for adaptability and survival under changing conditions. "You are generalists," explained Dr. Zinn, a medical specialist from a species that resembled walking plants. "Most species in the galaxy are specialists. The Vrex evolved for strength and durability. The Crinians evolved for intelligence and fine manipulation. The Thaxians evolved for speed and agility. But humans evolved for everything. You can run, climb, swim, fight, think, and adapt. You are adequate at many things rather than excellent at one thing. On most worlds, this would be a weakness. On Earth, it was necessary for survival." Lisa Chen saw the shift in attitudes beginning. Fear was slowly transforming into curiosity. Aliens who had avoided humans now approached with questions. What was Earth really like? How did humans survive such conditions? What other abilities did they have? But the real change came during the plague. The disease started in the lower levels of Council Station Alpha 7, in a section used for cargo processing. Nobody knew where it came from. Some investigators suspected contamination from an unscanned shipment. Others thought it might have been a natural mutation of common bacteria. Whatever the source, the pathogen spread through the station like wildfire. The disease affected both silicon-based and carbon-based life forms, which was unusual. Most pathogens specialized in one type of biology. This one attacked cellular structures that were common to many different species. Within 6 hours of the first reported case, medical bays across the station were overflowing with sick aliens. Within 12 hours, the station went into full quarantine lockdown. Within 24 hours, people started dying. Dr. Andrew Kim was part of the human medical team assigned to the station. He had been a surgeon on Earth before volunteering for the space program. Andrew was methodical and calm, the kind of person who performed best under pressure. When the plague alert went out, he immediately reported to the nearest medical facility. The scene inside was chaos. Aliens lay on beds and floors, their bodies showing symptoms that varied by species. Some had developed strange growths on their skin. Others were bleeding from every orifice. A few were simply unconscious, their vital signs failing without any visible cause. The medical staff who were still healthy enough to work moved frantically between patients, but they were overwhelmed. Andrew found the chief medical officer, a being that resembled a blue octopus with too many tentacles. The doctor was clearly sick, his color faded and movement sluggish. "Are you infected?" Andrew asked immediately. "Yes," the doctor replied weakly. "Everyone is infected. The pathogen is airborne and extremely contagious. You should leave while you still can, human doctor. There is nothing you can do here." Andrew shook his head. "I am a doctor. This is where I belong. Now tell me everything you know about this disease." Working alongside Sophie Turner, a nurse from the human delegation, Andrew started gathering data. They scanned sick patients, analyzed blood samples, and studied the pathogen under microscopes. The disease was viral in nature, attacking cells at the genetic level. It was fast-acting and deadly, with a mortality rate that appeared to be nearly 100%. Sophie paused while drawing blood from an unconscious patient. She looked at Andrew with sudden realization. "We should be dead," she said quietly. Andrew blinked. "What? Look around. Every alien medical worker is sick. Every alien in this facility is infected. The pathogen is airborne, which means we have been breathing it for hours." She held up her hands. "But I feel fine." "You feel fine, why?" Andrew checked his own vital signs. Heart rate normal. Temperature normal. No symptoms at all. He scanned himself with a medical device. The results showed traces of the virus in his system, but his body was already producing antibodies. The infection was being neutralized before it could take hold. "Our immune systems," Andrew said slowly. "Earth is filled with diseases. Bacteria, viruses, parasites, fungal infections. Humans are constantly exposed to pathogens. Our immune systems evolved to be aggressive and adaptable." Sophie nodded. "These aliens come from cleaner worlds. They probably rarely get sick. Their immune systems never had to become as strong as ours." The realization changed everything. Andrew immediately contacted Ambassador Chen and explained the situation. Within 2 hours, a plan was in place. Human volunteers across the station donated blood. Andrew and Sophie worked with what few alien doctors remained conscious to develop a treatment based on human antibodies. They synthesized compounds, ran tests, and refined their formula. The first trials happened on the 3rd day of the outbreak. Patients who received the human antibody treatment showed improvement within hours. Their fevers dropped. Their symptoms reduced. Most importantly, they stopped dying. Andrew worked without sleep for 5 days straight. Sophie and the other human medical workers did the same. They treated thousands of patients, moving from medical bay to medical bay. The Human Blood Donation Center ran continuously, with every healthy human on the station contributing. Coordinator Velshara was one of the patients Andrew treated personally. The jellyfish-like being had been unconscious for 2 days. Its bioluminescent colors faded to almost nothing. Andrew administered the antibody treatment directly into Velshara's central mass and waited. After 30 minutes, Velshara's colors began to pulse again, faint but growing stronger. After an hour, the coordinator's eyes opened. "Human doctor," Velshara said weakly. "You saved my life." "Just doing my job," Andrew replied. He was exhausted, swaying on his feet. "How do you feel?" "Alive, confused, grateful." Velshara's lights flickered. "This plague should have killed you. Why did it not?" Andrew explained about Earth's diseases, about human immune systems, about the constant biological warfare that humanity had endured for millions of years. Velshara listened in silence. "We thought your world was hostile because of its weather and geology," the coordinator said finally. "We did not fully understand that the real danger was invisible. Your microscopic life has been waging war on your species since the beginning, and you survived. You adapted. You became immune to things that kill us easily. The plague was contained by the end of the 2nd week. The death toll was tragic, over 3,000 lives lost. But it would have been much worse without human intervention. Council doctors estimated that 90% of the station's population would have died within a month. The response from the galactic community was immediate and profound. Humans went from being feared curiosities to being valued members of the Council. Medical facilities across Council space requested human advisors. Research teams wanted to study human immune systems. Universities offered positions to human doctors and biologists. Ambassador Lisa Chen stood before the Council High Command to address them formally. Most of the members were still recovering from the plague, but they had insisted on holding this session. She looked at the assembled leaders representing dozens of worlds and species. "Earth did not ask to be humanity's cradle," Lisa said quietly. "We did not choose to evolve on a Class 13 Deathworld. But we are here now, we exist, and we have capabilities that the galaxy needs. You saved us," said Council Member Thrawn, a crystalline being from a frozen world. "We owe you a debt that cannot be repaid." Lisa shook her head. "You owe us nothing. We helped because that is what civilized beings do. They help each other. But we do ask for something in return." "Name it," Velshara said immediately. "Respect. True respect, not fear disguised as caution. We want to be part of this community as equals. We want our scientists working alongside yours, our doctors training yours, our people contributing to the Council's future." Lisa paused. "We are not monsters from a nightmare world. We are people who survive difficult circumstances. There is a difference. The vote was unanimous. Humanity was granted full Council membership with all rights and privileges. Human representatives would serve on council committees. Human ships would be integrated into council fleets. Human culture would be shared and celebrated across the galaxy. That night, Lisa stood in her quarters looking out at the stars. Sophie Turner came to visit, bringing a bottle of something that might have been wine from the station's human section. They sat together in comfortable silence for a while. "Do you think it will last?" Sophie asked. "This acceptance, this respect? Or will they go back to fearing us once the memory of the plague fades?" Lisa considered the question. "I think we proved something important. Not that we are strong or immune to disease. We proved that we use our strengths to help others. That is what civilized beings do. Fear fades, but respect earned through action lasts." Sophie nodded and raised her glass. "To action, then, and to Earth, the terrible, wonderful world that made us who we are." They drank together as the station rotated slowly through space, carrying the hopes of humanity toward an uncertain but promising future. 3 years passed in relative peace. Humanity integrated into the Galactic Council better than anyone had expected. Human engineers worked on projects across Council space, their ability to function in extreme environments proving invaluable. Human doctors revolutionized medical practices, teaching alien physicians about aggressive immune responses and adaptive treatments. Human scientists collaborated with researchers from dozens of species, bringing fresh perspectives to old problems. But the galaxy was vast, and not everyone was part of the Council. The Drav Collective operated from the Galactic Rim, a loose alliance of raiders and pirates who had been harassing Council space for generations. They were not a single species, but rather a coalition of outcasts, criminals, and warriors from various worlds. What united them was a philosophy of taking what they wanted through force. The Council had tried diplomacy, economic pressure, and limited military responses. Nothing worked. Then the Drav changed their tactics. Instead of hit-and-run raids on cargo ships, they began taking entire colonies hostage. They would drop forces onto a planet, seize control of population centers, and demand massive ransoms. If the Council refused to pay, the Drav would enslave the colonists and sell them to the highest bidder. When the Drav took the colony on Theron 6, holding 50,000 civilians hostage, the Council finally decided to act. They assembled the largest military fleet in recent history. Over 200 warships from 40 different species gathered at a staging point near the border. The goal was to overwhelm the Drav with superior numbers and force them to retreat. Humanity contributed 3 ships to the fleet. The ECS Liberty, commanded by Captain Roger Blake, was the largest. The ECS Defiant and ECS Valor were smaller but equally advanced. All 3 vessels were built using human engineering principles, designed to be tough and adaptable. Roger Blake stood on the bridge of the Liberty, watching the Council fleet assemble through the main view screen. His tactical officer, Lieutenant Chris Walker, was running analysis on the fleet's formation. Chris was young but brilliant, a graduate of the Naval Academy who had transferred to the space program. "Sir, their formation is very organized," Chris said carefully, trying to be diplomatic. "Very symmetrical, but it is also rigid, and they are moving slowly." Roger nodded. He had noticed the same thing. The Council fleet moved like a parade formation, ships precisely spaced in neat rows. It looked impressive, but it was not practical for actual combat. "They fight like they negotiate," Roger said quietly. "Carefully, methodically, following rules." "The Drav do not follow rules," Chris replied. "No, they do not." The fleet jumped to hyperspace together, arriving at Theron 6 in a coordinated movement that probably took weeks of planning. The Drav were waiting. Their fleet was smaller, maybe 80 ships, but they were positioned aggressively around the planet. As soon as the Council fleet appeared, the Drav attacked. What happened next shocked everyone. The Drav ships did not engage in long-range bombardment like civilized fleets. They charged directly into the Council formation, firing continuously. Some Drav vessels rammed Council ships deliberately, sacrificing themselves to cause maximum damage. Others used suicide shuttles loaded with explosives, piloted by warriors who saw death in battle as honorable. The Council fleet tried to maintain formation, but their careful organization became a liability. Ships collided with each other trying to maneuver. Commanders waited for orders from fleet leadership instead of responding to immediate threats. Within an hour, 30 Council vessels had been destroyed or disabled. Admiral Kevin Price, the human fleet commander, watched from the Defiant. He was older than most of the human space program personnel, a veteran of Earth's naval conflicts before humanity reached for the stars. Kevin had gray hair, hard eyes, and a reputation for being brilliant under pressure. He opened a communication channel to Coordinator Velshara, who was commanding the Council fleet from a massive dreadnought. "Coordinator, with respect, your tactics are not working. The Drav are not fighting the way you expected. Request permission to engage independently." There was a long pause. Kevin could see explosions reflected in the view screen as more Council ships took damage. Finally, Velshara responded. "Admiral Price, your 3 ships represent less than 2% of this fleet. What can you possibly accomplish?" "We can fight a real war," Kevin said bluntly. "Humanity has been practicing warfare for 10,000 years, Coordinator. We know how to do this. Trust us." Another pause. Then, "Permission granted. Good luck, Admiral." The 3 human ships broke formation. The Liberty, Defiant, and Valor moved like hunting predators through the battlefield. They did not maintain careful spacing or follow geometric patterns. Instead, they adapted to circumstances, using destroyed Council ships as cover, exploiting debris fields, targeting vulnerable Drav vessels with precision strikes. Captain Roger Blake commanded the Liberty with calm efficiency. "Chris, I want continuous updates on Drav fleet movements. Navigation, prepare for rapid course changes. Weapons, fire only when you have clean shots. Make every torpedo count." The Liberty accelerated toward a cluster of Drav ships that were overwhelming a Council cruiser. Instead of engaging at long range, Roger brought the Liberty in close using the larger Council ship as a shield. The Drav, focused on their current target, did not notice the human vessel until the Liberty opened fire at point-blank range. 3 Drav ships exploded in quick succession. The Defiant, commanded by Admiral Price himself, used different tactics. Kevin studied the battlefield like a chess game, identifying patterns in Drav movements. When he spotted a gap in their formation, he took the Defiant through it at maximum speed, firing on both flanks. The maneuver was risky, putting the ship in crossfire from multiple directions. But the Defiant's shields held, and the surprise attack caused confusion in the Drav lines. The Valor, smallest of the 3 human ships, proved to be the most aggressive. Her captain, a woman named Nicole Hart, had flown fighter jets before joining the space program. She treated the Valor like a massive fighter, using its superior maneuverability to get inside the effective range of larger Drav weapons. The Valor would strike fast, cause damage, and retreat before the enemy could respond. The Drav began to realize they were facing something different. These human ships did not fight like the Council. They moved unpredictably. They took risks that seemed suicidal but somehow worked. They used tactics that the Drav had never encountered. A Drav commander, broadcasting on an open channel, said something that the translator rendered as, "They fight like demons, like the void itself has come alive to destroy us." Roger Blake heard the transmission and smiled grimly. "Chris, relay a message to the Drav fleet. Tell them that if they want to see real demons, they should try invading Earth sometime." The battle lasted 6 hours. By the end, the Drav attack was broken. Their fleet scattered, retreating into hyperspace in small groups. The Council had held the system, though at terrible cost. They had lost 47 ships with thousands of casualties. The 3 human vessels returned to the fleet with damage, but no losses. The Liberty had scorch marks across her hull and 1 engine running at reduced capacity. The Defiant had lost shields on her port side. The Valor looked like she had been through a meat grinder, with hull breaches and damaged systems throughout. But she was still flying. Coordinator Velshara requested a direct communication with Admiral Price. The Coordinator's colors were subdued, pulsing slowly. "Admiral, your tactics were extraordinary. Reckless, brutal, and completely effective. You fought like nothing I have ever seen." Kevin nodded. "With respect, Coordinator, you and the Council have been at peace for so long that you have forgotten what real war looks like. War is not about formations and rules. It is about survival, about doing whatever is necessary to protect your people and defeat your enemies." "Your ships took enormous risks," Velshara said. "The Liberty's ramming maneuver should have destroyed your vessel. The Defiant's run through the Drav formation exposed you to fire from a dozen directions. The Valor should have been blown apart 3 separate times." "Should have," Kevin agreed, "but was not. Because our crews are trained for this. Because our ships are built to survive damage and keep fighting. Because we come from a world where everything is trying to kill us and we learn to be tougher than everything else. The Council fleet limped back to friendly space, but the human ships did not stop. With Council approval, Kevin led a campaign deep into Drav territory. They used guerrilla tactics, hit-and-run strikes, psychological warfare. They liberated 4 colonies, destroyed supply depots, and disrupted Drav command structures. The Drav Collective, which had resisted Council military pressure for generations, sued for peace after 3 weeks of human operations. The war changed everything. After the Drav conflict ended, the Galactic Council could no longer pretend that humans were just another species. They were exceptional, not because they were smarter or stronger than everyone else, but because they had been forged in conditions that created a particular kind of resilience. Council military academies began requesting human instructors. Defense contractors wanted to study human ship designs. Political theorists wrote papers about human tactical philosophy. The phrase Earth tough entered galactic common language as a term meaning durable and reliable. Ambassador Lisa Chen watched these changes with mixed feelings. She sat in her office on Council Station Alpha 7, now renovated and expanded after the plague, reviewing reports from across the galaxy. Humans were everywhere now. Scientists on research stations, engineers on construction projects, doctors in hospitals, soldiers training Council defense forces, teachers in schools. President Helen Foster appeared on her communication screen for their weekly briefing. Helen looked older now, the stress of leading Earth through first contact and integration showing in the lines on her face. Lisa, we need to talk about the future. The Council has made an unusual request. What kind of request? They want us to lead an initiative to contact other Deathworld species. They think if humanity can help them, there might be others out there facing the same isolation we felt. Lisa leaned back in her chair. You mean they want us to find more Class 13 monsters like ourselves? Helen smiled slightly. They did not use that exact phrasing, but yes. The Council has avoided high classification worlds for centuries. They thought nothing could survive on them, or if something did, it would be too dangerous to contact. But we proved that wrong. So now they are wondering what else they have been wrong about. The initiative began slowly. Human exploration teams, backed by Council resources and ships, started visiting planets that had been marked as too hostile for colonization or study. They were not looking for primitive life or empty worlds. They were looking for civilizations that had developed despite impossible odds. Captain Daniel Hayes, promoted to admiral after his successful first contact mission, volunteered to lead the exploration efforts. He took the newly built ESS Wanderer II, a ship designed specifically for extreme environment operations. His crew included specialists in biology, geology, atmospheric science, and xenoanthropology. Their first success came at a planet designated YX4047 in Council records. The planet orbited close to its star, receiving intense radiation. Its surface was covered in active volcanoes that constantly reshaped the landscape. Council surveys had detected complex chemistry but assumed nothing could live there. Daniel took the Wanderer II into orbit and deployed probes. The readings were fascinating. There were structures on the surface, geometric patterns that looked artificial, energy signatures that suggested technology, and thermal readings consistent with biological activity. We have a civilization here, Daniel told his crew. Lieutenant Karen Mills, prepare a landing team. Let us go meet our new neighbors. The species they found called themselves the Krell. They were silicon-based life forms that looked like living rock formations. They communicated through vibrations and heat signatures. They had built a civilization in the volcanic regions of their world, using geothermal energy and adapting to the constant reshaping of their environment. The Krell were shocked to meet aliens. They had assumed they were alone in the universe, that their world was so harsh that nothing else like them could exist. When Daniel explained about Earth, about Class 13 ratings and impossible survival, the Krell elder made a sound like grinding stones that the translator rendered as laughter. We are not alone, the elder said. There are others who understand. This changes everything. The second contact happened at a frozen world designated LX882. The planet was locked in perpetual ice age, with temperatures that rarely rose above -100 degrees Celsius. The Council had surveyed it briefly and found it lifeless. But Daniel and his team discovered the Nyx, a species of crystalline beings who lived beneath the ice. They had evolved to use chemical reactions for energy, rather than consuming organic matter. They had developed a sophisticated culture based on patterns and resonance. They created art by reshaping ice crystals. They communicated through light refraction. The Knicks had never even considered leaving their world. They thought space was empty, that the stars were just lights in their frozen sky. Meeting humanity, learning about the vast galactic civilization transformed their entire worldview. The third contact was perhaps the most profound. The world was designated OC 663, a water planet with crushing pressures in its deep oceans. The Council knew there was life there, but assumed it was primitive, unable to develop technology under such conditions. The Tharn proved them wrong. They were deep ocean dwellers adapted to pressures that would crush most ships. They had developed biotechnology rather than mechanical technology, growing structures from modified organisms. They had cities in the deepest trenches, places where the pressure was so intense that only specialized equipment could survive. Daniel communicated with them using pressure-resistant drones and translators that converted vibrations into language. The Tharn were fascinated by the concept of aliens from the thin water above. They had stories about the surface, myths about a hostile place where pressure was too low and light was too bright. Learning that life existed up there, that entire civilizations thrived in conditions they considered deadly, amazed them. Each contact followed a similar pattern. Daniel and his team would find a world rated Class 8 or higher. They would discover a species that had adapted to conditions the rest of the galaxy considered impossible. They would explain about Earth, about the Galactic Council, about the community of worlds waiting to welcome them, and each species would react with the same mixture of shock, wonder, and relief. "You are not alone," became Daniel's standard greeting. Simple words, but they carried weight. For species who had evolved in isolation, assuming their harsh worlds made them unique and separate. Learning about others like them changed everything. Within 2 years, Daniel's team had made contact with 12 Deathworld civilizations. Each was unique, adapted to their specific environment in remarkable ways. The Krell with their silicon biology, the Knicks with their crystalline structures, the Tharn with their pressure-adapted forms, the Vex from a high-gravity world, the Rin from a planet with toxic atmosphere, the Zor from a radiation-soaked moon. All of them had stories similar to humanity's. They had survived impossible conditions. They had adapted and evolved. They had built civilizations despite their worlds trying to kill them at every turn. And all of them had assumed they were alone, too strange and dangerous for anyone else to accept. The Galactic Council held a special session to welcome the new members. The chamber was modified to accommodate different environmental needs. The Krell attended through heat-resistant drones. The Knicks appeared via holographic projection from their frozen world. The Tharn sent ambassadors in pressure suits filled with water. Representatives from all 12 Deathworld species gathered alongside the original council members. Coordinator Velshara addressed the assembly, the jellyfish-like being's colors pulsing with emotion. For 12,000 years, the council has represented civilizations from comfortable worlds. We evolved in gardens, in gentle environments that nurtured our development. We built our society on assumptions shaped by those origins. We believed that harsh worlds produced harsh species, that danger bred danger. Velshara paused, colors shifting. Humanity taught us we were wrong. You came from a Class 13 nightmare, yet you brought medicine and compassion. You brought strength used in service of others. You showed us that survival does not make you cruel. It makes you resilient. The coordinator gestured to the assembled Deathworld species. Today we welcome others who share that resilience. The galaxy is larger and stranger than we knew. It contains wonders we never imagined, and we are honored to learn from you. Ambassador Lisa Chen stood to speak on behalf of the Deathworld Alliance, as the group of harsh world species had started calling themselves. She looked around the chamber at the incredible diversity represented there, silicon and carbon and crystalline life, species that breathed oxygen, methane, nothing at all, beings that communicated with sound, light, vibration, chemical signals. The council was built on one vision of civilization, Lisa said, a vision shaped by gentle worlds and abundant resources. That vision has served you well for thousands of years, but it was incomplete. There is another vision, shaped by scarcity and struggle, a vision that says survival itself is noble, that adaptation is strength, That overcoming impossible odds is the greatest achievement, she smiled. We do not come to replace your vision. We come to expand it. Together, the comfortable worlds and the harsh worlds, we can build something greater than either could alone. You have wisdom we lack. We have perspectives you need. Separately, we are incomplete. Together, we are limitless. The vote to restructure the council to include Deathworld representation was unanimous. 5 years after first contact, the galaxy looked completely different. The Galactic Council had transformed from a cautious bureaucracy into a dynamic alliance of diverse civilizations. The old order, built on assumptions of gentle evolution and careful progress, had given way to something new. Something that embraced the full spectrum of life's possibilities. Council Station Humanity orbited Earth now, a massive structure visible from the surface. It served as the headquarters for Deathworld initiatives and as a cultural center, where species from across the galaxy came to learn about harsh world civilizations. The station's observation deck featured a view of Earth, and it had become a popular destination for alien tourists and scholars. Captain Karen Mills stood in that observation deck, looking down at her homeworld. She commanded the Wanderer II now, after Daniel Hayes had been promoted to head of Exploration Command. Karen had spent the last year visiting remote worlds, making contact with isolated species and expanding the Council's understanding of what was possible. Coordinator Vel Shara joined her at the window. The jellyfish-like being's colors pulsed in patterns Karen had learned to recognize as contentment. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching Earth rotate slowly below. Do you know what I see when I look at your world? Felshara asked eventually. A dangerous planet that should not have produced intelligent life, Karen replied with a slight smile. No, not anymore. Velshara's colors shifted to deep blue. I see potential. I see what happens when life refuses to surrender to impossible circumstances. I see the birthplace of a species that changed the galaxy, not through conquest or dominance, but through example. Karen nodded. We almost gave up, you know. Before we developed space travel. Earth has so many problems. Climate change, resource depletion, political conflicts. We thought maybe we were doomed, that our harsh world had created harsh people incapable of cooperation. But you did not give up. No. We reached for the stars instead, and we found you, found the Council, found proof that intelligence and compassion exist throughout the universe. Karen turned to look at the coordinator. That gave us hope, gave us a reason to be better. Velshara's colors brightened. The exchange has benefited both sides. Before humanity, the Council was stagnant. We had become comfortable, risk-averse. We avoided challenges. Your arrival reminded us that growth requires discomfort, that progress means confronting fear rather than hiding from it. On the surface below, Earth continued its complex dance of life. 7 billion humans pursuing 7 billion different dreams. Cities glowed in the darkness. Ships moved across oceans. Aircraft traced lines through the atmosphere. All of it happening on a planet rated Class 13, a death world that should have been empty. Elsewhere on the station, human and alien children attended school together. Dr. Andrew Kim taught advanced medicine to students from 20 different species. Engineers from Earth collaborated with Krell builders on projects that combined mechanical and geological technology. Artists created works that blended human emotion with alien perspectives. The military integration had proven particularly successful. Admiral Kevin Price now commanded a combined fleet that included ships from dozens of worlds. Human tactical doctrine had been adapted and taught throughout Council space. But it was a two-way exchange. Humans learned patience and long-term thinking from species who lived for centuries. They learned different approaches to problem-solving from minds that perceived reality in entirely different ways. Ambassador Lisa Chen, now the senior human representative on the Council High Command, reviewed reports from across the integrated civilization. Medical advances inspired by human immune systems had reduced disease mortality by 60%. Engineering techniques adapted from Deathworld species had enabled construction in previously impossible environments. Military reforms based on human experience had made Council forces more effective while reducing casualties. But perhaps most importantly, cultural exchange had enriched everyone. Humans discovered art forms they had never imagined, music that used wavelengths beyond human hearing, but could still be appreciated through translation technology, literature from species with completely different cognitive structures. Philosophy shaped by perspectives humans had never considered, and humanity's gifts to the galaxy were equally profound. The Council had never experienced human music before, the way it could evoke pure emotion through sound alone. Human visual arts with their focus on light and shadow, perspective and composition. Human stories filled with triumph over adversity, exploration of moral complexity and belief in redemption. President Helen Foster addressed Earth's population on the anniversary of first contact. She stood in the same office where she had met with Lisa Chen 5 years earlier, but now the camera also captured Velshara standing beside her. The coordinator had become a regular visitor to Earth, one of the few aliens comfortable in Earth's gravity and atmosphere. 5 years ago, Helen began, we learned we were not alone in the universe. We learned that Earth's harsh conditions had made us different from our neighbors. We worried this would make us outcasts, too strange to be accepted. She paused, glancing at Velshara. We were wrong. Our differences became our strength. The galaxy did not need another species just like everyone else. It needed what only we could offer. Resilience born from struggle. Adaptability learned through necessity. Hope forged in adversity. Velshara's colors pulsed as the coordinator spoke. And Earth has given the galaxy something even more precious. A reminder that life finds a way. That intelligence and compassion can emerge from any circumstances. That diversity makes us stronger rather than dividing us. The broadcast reached across human civilization and beyond. It was transmitted to every council world, translated into hundreds of languages. Beings across the galaxy watched as representatives from 2 very different worlds stood together. Partners in a civilization neither could have built alone. Admiral Daniel Hayes, retired from active service but still influential, watched the broadcast from his home in Colorado. His wife, a xenolinguist he had met during the exploration mission, sat beside him. Their daughter, born in the new age of galactic citizenship, played in the yard with a Krell child whose family was visiting Earth as part of a cultural exchange program. Do you think it will last? His wife asked. This peace, this cooperation? Daniel watched the children play, watched his daughter help the silicon-based alien climb a tree it had never encountered before. Nothing lasts forever, he said honestly. There will be conflicts, misunderstandings, challenges we cannot predict. But we have built something resilient, something that can bend without breaking. That is the gift of Deathworlds. We know how to endure. On Council Station Alpha 7, now the center of a civilization spanning thousands of worlds, species from across the galaxy worked together on projects that would have been impossible alone. A joint research initiative was studying the possibility of terraforming harsh worlds, making them more habitable while preserving their unique characteristics. Engineers were designing ships that could operate in environments ranging from frozen wastelands to volcanic hellscapes. Medical researchers were developing treatments that worked across different biological types. Lieutenant Jake Morrison, who had survived alone on the Vrex homeworld years earlier, now trained mixed-species teams in survival skills. He taught them that survival was not about being the strongest or toughest. It was about being adaptable, creative, and willing to learn. His students came from comfortable worlds and harsh ones, and they all learned from each other. Sophie Turner, the nurse who had helped contain the plague, ran a medical training center that combined techniques from dozens of species. She taught alien doctors about human immune responses. She learned from Tharn healers about pressure-based medicine. She collaborated with Nyx physicians on using crystalline structures for tissue repair. The galaxy had changed, not because one species had conquered others or because advanced technology had solved every problem. It had changed because different kinds of intelligence had come together and recognized that their differences were valuable. Captain Karen Mills prepared for another exploration mission. The Wanderer 2 was being loaded with supplies for a 6-month journey to the galactic edge, where surveys had detected potential signs of civilization on worlds even harsher than Earth. If intelligent life existed there, they deserved to know they were not alone. Before departure, Karen stood in the observation deck one last time, looking at Earth, the planet that had shaped humanity, the Class 13 death world that everyone had said was impossible. The birthplace of a species that had changed the galactic order not through force, but through the simple act of surviving and choosing to help others. Thank you, she said quietly to the planet below, for making us tough enough to survive, smart enough to adapt, and compassionate enough to care about more than just ourselves. The Wanderer too departed, carrying its message to the unknown. You are not alone. Your harsh world does not make you wrong or broken. It makes you unique. It gives you gifts that the rest of the galaxy needs. Come join us. Help us build something greater than any of us could create alone. And somewhere out there, on worlds rated Class 11, 12, 13, or higher,